Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Screen Junkies Universe. It's Tuesday. That means I have these two dancing fools with me, Joe Starr and Roxy Striar. Yeah. Dan Murrell is here. And we are a very divided desk today. Everything's falling apart, so it's business as usual right here on Screen Junkies. Lots to talk about, actually, in the news of entertainments. X-Men delayed again. And apparently there's new information on the Solo set. A little bit of chaos. And we're going to have the very best of Spielberg all coming up. Let's start with those X-Men. This is via the tracking board initially. So 2 of Fox's upcoming X-Men films have been delayed till 2019 in a shift of release dates. Dark Phoenix, which is the 4th movie in the 2nd installment of the X-Men films, has been moved back. It was originally set to be released on November 2nd, 2018. It has been moved back to February 14th, 2019, Valentine's Day.
That date sounds so familiar.
Yes, it does. It now places Dark Phoenix 1 week before Sony's Silver and Black, which is, of course, featuring the Spider-Man characters Black Cat and Silver Sable. Yeah. That's interesting. New Mutants has been moved again, so this release has already been pushed back once. It's been pushed back again. This is from director Josh Boone. It is now set to be released on August 2nd, 2019. That's up from February 22nd, 2019, and up originally from April 2018. The Queen biopic, Bohemian Rhapsody, has also been moved from Christmas Day to November 2nd, taking over Dark Phoenix's original release date. Anya Taylor-Joy, who is in a movie Dan and I recommend highly, called Thoroughbreds, available to you right now if you want to get that Anya Taylor-Joy hit. She said this. She is also in New Mutants about the release date move. The only thing that I can say without being in trouble is that it being delayed is disappointing, frustrating, in fact, because we were all very excited for it to be released on April 13th. This is in an interview with The Playlist. I don't mean just disappointed for me, but I'm sure there are a lot of other fans that are looking forward to seeing it. She went on to say, however, I do think there is a great responsibility to make sure that the movie is done right and that we deliver the fans something they can feel happy about and excited. So I don't think it being delayed is a bad thing, because it's definitely more important to make sure we get it right versus rushing to make a date. La, 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 la. It's interesting how she was like, it sucks, but I get it, is how I'm going to condense that, which is essentially how I feel about it too from the outside. What about you, Dan?
I mean, it's never a good sign. So,
it's not a good sign. I mean, it's been moved back twice.
I mean, the rumor when it got pushed back, not the rumor, kind of the general consensus when it got pushed back the first time was that they were reworking it fairly extensively. And now it seems like it's almost, I mean, with this kind of lead time, it's almost like they're shooting a whole new movie. So I hope we don't have, I mean, this is Fox. They have a spotty record. I hope we don't have a Fantastic Four situation where you have a whole movie in the can and then they go back and they reshoot it and then half the movie feels one way and half the movie feels the other way and the two pieces don't merge together and you just slap a 2 years later card somewhere to stitch them together in the middle. Yeah, I don't know. It's never great news when a movie gets delayed, but hopefully that means that they're gonna figure it out, I guess. Dark Phoenix is the one that's a little more interesting to me because it's not a huge shift. It's November to February, so it's only 3 months.
Yeah. But it's also from prime time to dead time.
But is it? That's where Black Panther came out.
Yeah,
Black
that's
Panther
true.
just set every box office record for February.
And
so
maybe
did
they want to mimic the idea that it didn't have much competition, and they want to give the film an ability to be living in a zone without much competition.
That's what makes me curious, is did they push it back because they're having issues and they needed a few months, or did they look at the schedule and did they say, well, this movie just made a buttload of money. Why are we coming out in November when every other movie, we're coming into the holiday rush and the Oscar season? Why don't we just shift it to February? That's what I want to know. That's what I would like to know more.
Yeah. About that. I kind of think that, I actually think that approach, given the success of Black Panther, makes a ton of sense to give the movie the opportunity to have legs. Drink or eat an apple. Every time we say have legs.
I kind of feel bad for Anya Taylor-Joy in this situation, or any actors that are asked about this, because it's like, are you supposed to say like, yes, I'm stoked. I'm stoked the movie was pushed back. That's so exciting. Or are you supposed to say, it kind of sucks. I'm not an A-list star at this point. I'm waiting for my name to be really like shared and seen, and I really want the movie to come out. So people who are like complaining that this is an unfair statement, what is she what is anybody supposed to say?
Yeah.
What is anybody who's working on this project supposed to say?
I don't
It's
think
not
anybody
exciting.
is complaining, though.
Well, just the fact that I saw a couple of tweets
okay.
saying that, that it's not nice when you're not working behind the scenes of a film to complain about something that.
Okay.
But she's not complaining. She's excited for it, and that actually, this statement made me feel a little safer, because if she wants it to be earlier, that means she feels good about the film.
Yeah. I mean, I think that anybody who works on a project wants people to see it, right? But I think to her other point, like, you want to see it if it's good, when it's good.
And it sounds like they had something that must have been close to finished. I mean, at the point where they pushed that release date, you're in the production cycle, you would have a good idea of what the movie, or some idea of what the movie is going to be. Maybe not a good idea, but some idea. So again, is this Fox saying, we want to do more universe building? Because they said, these reshoots apparently are including new characters and stuff. Or did they look at it and just go, because the word on this was that it is not tonally in line. It's very kind of a horror tone was what the buzz was, is that we had a full trailer for it. Is it going to be completely overhauled? Again, these are questions that I think are very interesting to ask, and who knows if we'll get answers.
Dan wants answers.
I have a question for Joe Starr. Hi, Joe Starr. There was a rumor that they were adding a character to New Mutants, and we've already pontificated about this a little bit, but it's really hard not to speculate that given the impending Fox-Disney merger, are they going to try to include a character from the MCU in this movie, and would that even make sense from what we know of the movie?
I don't think honestly any of these shifts or reshoots have anything to do with the merger. I really, really don't. I think they have more to do with getting their films right, because the X-Men films don't necessarily have the best critical track record. And in the case of Dark Phoenix, it's putting it in a month where people will actually go see it. I don't think they're gonna get. I think if they're going for the Black Panther strategy with X-Men Dark Phoenix, they're gonna be sorely disappointed. The February strategy will work, but trying to create a cultural juggernaut out of Dark Phoenix will probably not work. If anything, because these X-Men movies, the spin-offs are sort of supposed to be these standalones. Maybe X-23. But I honestly think it'll be more of a is Jyn Erso going to be Rey's mom situation, where it's just another New Mutants character, Doug Warlock or somebody like that. My main thought on New Mutants maybe being pushed back, where I'm like, maybe it's a positive, is that Josh Boone and the writer are horror guys. They're attached to The Stand. So my thought is maybe the first go around with this was them sort of playing it safe with the studio and trying to make somewhat of a hybrid of a scary but still studio superhero movie. And then maybe someone at the studio was like, you know what, let's let them do what Deadpool did and just run with it and give it a little more time to actually fulfill one specific vision. That's the optimist in me. But I really don't think any of this has to do with the MCU. I think it has to do with just positioning movies around to succeed, giving them a little more time to be finished and polished.
Roth, when you asked that question, would you want to see somebody? Is there somebody in particular
No.
that
I would really? I mean, not that if it made sense. What I would really want to see is what Joe is describing. I would want to see a vision fulfilled clearly, cohesively.
I also don't think there's any way that. I really don't think that Disney would approach integrating the X-Men by having one of their players visit the away team's field. There's no way that happens.
But I think that's the better in terms of the crossover. If they were going to do a crossover, they're doing it with A-Team. They're doing it with Wolverine.
All new Wolverine will show up in the Avengers on their terms.
Exactly. I agree 100%. And as far as this is concerned, I'm with you. I don't know. Hopefully, this just means we get a better movie out of it, and one that is clear and one that really has its. If they're taking anything from Black Panther, as a matter of fact, hopefully they're taking the idea of let the director direct a film that has a cohesive vision and that is bold in what it's doing.
Well, definitely
because we have
won't be
a
the
lot of
worst
comic
film.
movies.
Yeah.
Because how is it going to be worse by giving it more time? There's no way. Whatever we would have seen would have been worse.
You'd be surprised.
You'd be surprised.
I don't think I would be.
I will still hold to the belief that Fantastic Four, the new one, while not great,
That's
was
exactly what I was
infinitely
gonna
more
say.
interesting in its first half, which was obviously the direction they were going in, than it was in the second half,
the weird
which was
body horror thing.
generic.
But you think if it had less
Sky
time, it would have
beam.
been better?
No,
I
if they
think
had
that-
let him do what he was doing.
Oh, definitely
I think
that.
that if Josh Trank had been able to do what he was going to do, I'm not saying it would have been a great movie or even a good movie, but it would have been a lot more interesting than what we ended up with, which
Yeah.
was just the worst, most just phoned in,
Boring.
Yeah.
And that wig. I'm going to
Cliche,
take this
yeah.
opportunity to get mad at that wig once again. Are you kidding me?
You tell 'em.
Are you kidding me with that wig? Don't do that. Don't have her be ombre for half the movie and
Girl.
then in one scene, shot to shot, she's like in a platinum blonde wig and think we noticed.
Slay wig, slay.
We all knew.
I
the
will
men.
further.
Ooh, I
look
heard
at
it.
that. I
You're
love
on a
it.
rampage.
Wait, you didn't? There's a part where I beat up an animal.
What?
Yeah.
Oh,
Do that.
replay the
What
full.
kind of animal?
I want the. It's a gorilla.
Oh, okay. I don't know why that
I'm
makes
really
it better.
excited about this. No.
Oh, disappointing.
Deleted scene.
Deleted scenes from our graphics.
I will further bet you $5 each that Sony Silver and Black, number one, does not come out on February 21st, 2019, and almost that it will never come out. 'Cause
Oh, no, I
Sony
think
is
it will.
infamous for this, for dating movies and pushing them back and then not making them.
I really think Silver and Black will come out, and I think I have a good feeling about that movie. That's all I'm going to say for now.
You're taking $5 bet?
Then
I'm
I'm
taking a
betting
bet.
that I'm betting it does not come out on February 21st.
Well, probably not.
They'll
That I'll
slot
take.
Aunt May into there.
Yeah.
I would rather
May's fine.
you guys vote with this on me. I would rather see. I was actually randomly thinking about this today. I would rather see a messy, interesting movie than one that has been sanitized so much that there's just absolutely no soul left in it. And so, if cleaning it up means like movie by committee, I don't want that.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
My
Soul's
strong
the only thing you
My
have.
strong hope is that they just were like, "Hey,
It's
Josh
definitely the
Boone,
only
here's
thing
a
I
few
have.
more months to be more Josh Booney."
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
fingers crossed.
Warcraft was 10 times more interesting to me than the new Fantastic Four because Warcraft was a mess and it was all over the place, but it did some things really well and it did some things terribly, but at least it wasn't just the same garbage. It's just literal garbage. The last half of Fantastic Four was literal garbage just floating in the air.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm with you. An interesting failure is so much more, I think, desirable than a boring, phoned in, playing it safe.
Yeah. And speaking of which, solo news. We'll see what that ends up being.
She said
This is via The Wrap. I don't know. Maybe it'll be great. This is according to an actor who worked under directors Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Now, reportedly, this actor is not one of the leads in the film, but was in a position to be close to the action and see what the various directorial styles were on set. He spoke with Vulture on the condition of anonymity. Now, I say maybe this is a suit worker or something like that who actually would have been in the mix and close to it to see, but is not technically a lead actor. That's a guess. So
Warwick Davis.
Warwick
Yeah,
Davis.
100% Warwick Davis.
He is the
Warwick
leak.
Davis.
All right.
This is what he said. Phil and Chris are good directors, but they weren't prepared for Star Wars. After the 25th take, the actors are looking at each other like, this is getting weird. And they sometimes seemed a bit out of control. They definitely felt the pressure. With one of these movies, there are so many people on top of you all the time. The first assistant director was really experienced and had to step in to help them in a lot of the scenes. Then he went on to, we'll talk about what a first AD does on the set too in a minute. Then he went on to say, in terms of the additional photography, that this was literally a scene by scene reshoot. These were not new pages, unlike something like Rogue One, where Tony Gilroy came in and wrote new dialogue, and these were new scenes. These are the same scenes shot again to ideally make them better. She said it's exactly the same script. They're filming exactly the same things. There's nothing new. Lord and Miller used whole sets, but Ron is just using parts from those sets. So I guess they're shooting not shooting a wide angle, maybe to save money. It's not to save money. They probably just need those pickups, and they have the wide. The actor spoke with Vulture again, saying that hiring the acting coach did make a big difference in Alden Ehrenreich's performance, saying trying to mimic Harrison Ford is really tough. Lucasfilm wanted something very specific and copying someone else. Alden's not a bad actor, just not good enough. Burn! Lastly, and this piece is interesting, but I don't know how he would have, I guess he could have heard this by people talking on set. He said the insider revealed that there was a lot of pressure to make this film better after Star Wars The Last Jedi didn't make as much money as expected, adding, if they want to keep making Star Wars movies, it has to be really good. Thoughts?
I'm sure he heard Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah,
say
I mean,
that.
like, that's the thing.
The craft
So
service.
I was digging through the granola bars by Kathleen Kennedy.
Like that's the piece that felt like quite a leap to me. Like, I guess you could hear people overhear people talking on set, and the truth is, there's assistants on set and things like that who are having conversations. You could hear something, but what do you think of the rest of it?
This is not uncommon for a first AD to help.
No,
That
it's not.
happens very often. So it all depends on if this is coming from an experienced actor who's been on many sets or somebody who this is their first set. To them, if it's their first set or one of their first sets, they might be there thinking, wow, this is weird. And that just might be movie making. It might just be making films and not getting quite the right angle and not getting quite the right line and whatever it is over and over and over again. Sometimes you have to do 25 takes.
Did he? And it feels a little contradictory in the sense that he's like, they were doing 25 takes and it felt weird. Oh yeah, but then they hired Alden, an acting coach, and it got better. It's like maybe
Right.
they needed 25 takes in the first few weeks because they didn't know yet
They
that
weren't
they
getting what they
needed to
needed.
get Alden, an acting coach,
Right.
and
Also,
then they did.
25 takes from Lord and Miller, who love improv and being weird and goofy, like sounds about right.
Yeah, it is a lot.
It's extreme.
It's not saying 8 or 9 or even 12 takes. 25 is a lot, but also is that a exaggeration? After the 25th take, we
Yeah.
don't know how they said it. You know, it could be like after the 25th, aka the 6th take.
Yeah.
The only thing that really like sounds like okay, I get that, and I'll take that at face value, is that they were just redoing the scenes because the story seemed like they did not like how Lord and Miller were doing their movie. Not that they didn't like their movie or the script. They just didn't like how it was being approached. So they brought in someone else to approach it better, good, or differently, maybe. I don't know. In terms of the acting coach thing, this is stupid. You guys would be amazed at how many actors you absolutely love who are masters of the craft have acting coaches, have acting teachers, work with them regularly, have them on set. Because most people see this as a craft that they're never going to stop learning.
If you're good at something, you should feel that way. You
Yeah.
should always be in beginner's mind and think you can learn. And you're right, Marilyn Monroe, famously, she was a little dependent, though, if we're honest. But she had her acting coach with her all the time on set, and lots of actors do use acting coaches, and they do utilize them. And also, you could hit a role where it's really tough. And imagine being Alden. They're under pressure. He's under pressure, playing Han Solo. And then if he's getting the idea that he's going to get more and more in his head as he feels like the directors aren't getting what he wants, like, of course the guy needs some help. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
I feel like it's an almost impossible set of shoes to fill.
Yeah.
And the second you start realizing how huge it is, and probably you're looking at what is going on with The Last Jedi, and you're like, wow, everything is under a microscope. Holy crap, gotta be better, how do you not panic in that situation?
And once you're panicking, then you're not going to be able to
can't perform.
improv and perform.
No.
And so it's like, I could see how that was nobody's fault, but a recipe for something simply not working.
Well, someone construing that as a negative just reminds me of like, I'm like, okay, this was like a douchey day player who got lucky and they're an unnamed member of a pirate crew or something like that. And they're one of those guys that like goes to the bar with their friends afterwards and is like, I'm such a good actor, I don't need lessons or classes. And it's like, oh, you're doing this wrong, buddy. You don't understand how any of this works.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I've never been jumping up and down over this movie.
Sure.
I don't think it's just not really in my wheelhouse. I hope that it surprises me, but I don't like these I hate these anonymous pieces. I really do. I hate these anonymous pieces, especially when they come out and kind of trash what's going on, because either there's like a code. And like when Titanic was in production, like every anonymous piece that came out about Titanic from some unnamed crew member was, this thing is a disaster. It's gonna wreck James Cameron's career. It's gonna be the worst thing ever made. It's and then turned out to be the biggest movie of all time. And there is kind of again, I've never worked on a set like this, on a movie like this, but I've worked on sets, and I've worked on sets where people are working very hard to. There's rarely a set where there's people that are just like, we're going to make a real piece of garbage. Let's go.
Yeah.
Everyone there is trying very hard. Everyone is trying to make the best thing that they can, and there's there's like an unspoken code of just like, don't talk out of turn. Don't unless there's like something legitimately wrong.
Yeah.
That
Ron
you
Howard
need
is being
to
abusive.
exactly that you need to bring someone's attention to. But
That was
to
an
do
example.
this, yeah,
Not actually happening.
right. To do this anonymous thing and talk to press anonymously and trash the movie and trash Alden Ehrenreich, say he's not a good enough actor. I'm sorry, that's just shitty.
Yeah, it
and
is.
I hope that they find out who this guy is and they don't hire him anymore, because you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
He knows what he's doing, or she. They're trying to get off by and by peddling insider information that these press outlets are going to buy to their own aggrandizement, and to the there's a lot of people that worked on this movie that now it's adding to buzz that's not already great. So I hate these things.
I actually have a question about the buzz factor. Billy, our producer Billy said this morning, you know what? The truth is, I had zero interest in this film until all of this scuttlebutt started happening, and now I have to see it out of curiosity. Do you think in a way there is no bad press in this case, in the sense that it's just getting us more and more curious about Han Solo? Like, I got to see what this thing turns out to be.
I think there's bad press because it's not just about going to see the movie at this point. Now it's about conversation and how we interact with each other. This is why you have this subgroup of DC fans that feel like they're put upon and they're on the ropes and they got to fight back because they're like, oh, everyone says all this garbage about DC, and so now I have to be very vitriolic and rude and violent, and now this is going to be the same conversation where it's like, oh, we know Kathleen Kennedy's a trash fire, but all these Disney heads are going to defend it, to the last breath. So I think there's bad press does more. Stuff like this does more than just affect a movie. It affects the entire conversation around it, and it affects the entire idea around it, which is, it feels gross. And it feels gross that a larger publication is, and I'm not trying to throw too much shade here, but a larger publication taking the ain't it cool route of this. I mean, this just screams at the end of this, this guy was like, call me Warp Blaster, if you run my scoop. And it's, no one verified this. They just ran with it.
That's what I hate, is this unverified. If this was a piece where they'd gone to 4 different, we spoke to 4 separate sources on the production who all, spoke under the condition of anonymity, but, they all have these stories. Maybe that's one thing where I would give a shred of any kind of legitimacy. But this is one person. We don't know who they are.
Yeah.
I assume that the journalists who put the story together knows who they are, and maybe they've deemed that this is a legitimate source. But me just sitting here not knowing who this person is, if it's just an extra who was sitting on a folding chair for half the time.
And the AD snapped at him one day, and he was like, I'll get you for not letting me finish this apple.
Although the AD came off very well in this.
Yeah, actually.
That's the genius of his plan, Roth. Yeah. The AD's going to be like, there's no way that was Bill.
Look, in all fairness to Vulture, we don't know if they vetted this, and we don't know who this person again came in is anonymous. That's not unusual in the journalism.
No.
Deep Throat was anonymous. There could be somebody that was anonymous, but
very
actually,
similar situations.
Watergate Solo.
Yeah.
Watergate, yeah, exactly the
Watergate.
same.
Damn it. Don't play the graphic. But I agree with you guys in the sense that movie sets are very difficult places to be. Famously, do you remember we talked about The Birds just the other day, and Alfred Hitchcock with all of those takes of her getting attacked by the birds? If that was written about, it'd be like, this set is crazy.
Yeah.
Hitchcock is going after this woman with 30 takes of just the bird attack.
We don't know what scene this is.
It is a classic film. I'm not saying that this will be. We don't know what it's going to be one way or another. We want to be fair and say that movie making is maybe one of the harder things anyone can do.
Yeah, definitely. And when you look at this,
this guy,
you have to also think about some people are really jealous and petty just in life in general,
which is how this comes
and
off.
As much as I'm saying it would be hard, who wouldn't want that role? If you're an actor on set, you want that role. So you don't have it, and it's easy. It's like when you're great at anything, or you think you're great at anything, when somebody else is doing it, you're like, that's not how I would do it. I would do it better. you know what? They're fine, but just not good enough.
They're not me.
Like, not a mate, you know? And that's obnoxious and it's petty. And I think regardless of if it's good press or bad press or whether that drives the movie, this person was not thinking, I'm going to get press for this movie. They were thinking, I'm going to make people not want to go see this.
Well, there are people that read these things as gospel truth. And if you read this story and you just like, well, this is proof positive that, so just go back, just do an internet search for movie news and just see the other anonymous insider reports that have come out about movies, good and bad, and they are BS as much as they are true.
Wonder Woman, there were some horrible ones about.
And Batman v Superman got a standing ovation. I mean, you know, it's things.
Maybe it did.
We don't know who these people are. We don't know what they did.
In the executive screening, maybe it really did.
You know, and even you know, and I get why Vulture's going to run this because look here, we're talking about this article right now. They're in the business of internet journalism, and this is a big, sexy story, and I get why you're going to run it. But even then, it's like they weren't. Even if this is a name that they can verify is in the movie, they weren't there. This person could be making it up. This the
is
whole
there
thing.
anyone, Dan, that this could be that would make you feel like it mattered?
What if it was Alden?
I think it'd be more like it's not so much
Alden's
who it
not
is.
good enough.
It's more that like
That'd be so sad.
He just-
Doesn't
he
it change
himself
it to
was saying
become
that he was
so
not good
sad?
enough.
Like,
Alden's bad.
Alden's okay.
That'd be the new
Not
Batfleck
good.
meme.
I would immediately relate to him so much. I'd be like, I feel the same way, Alden, all the time.
Yeah.
Bring it
Get
in,
it,
man.
man.
Give us a hug.
Alden
But you
has
don't-
You guys want
feelings.
to talk about something we love?
Yeah, sure.
Do your final thought.
Oh, I was just saying, you don't know who this person is. You don't know where their loyalties are. There are people. Maybe they're loyal to Lord and Miller, or maybe they're loyal to Ron Howard.
Yeah.
Or maybe
Well,
they
just don't
or
know
maybe
where
they
people are
handed
coming
Vulture
from.
their headshot along
Or to
with this.
Warner
And it's like, if
Brothers.
you know any casting directors, I'm much better than Alden.
Coming as a spy from a different studio.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. I'm not defending Solo. I am speaking in favor of moderation and let's just see the movie. You know, like these anonymous things are just
I
take
think
it.
that's a
with the-
ludicrous suggestion.
Yeah.
So
Insane, man.
Take it with the biggest grain of salt that you can find from whatever that planet was at the end of the last show.
tasty
Salt.
red salt. Red
Red
salt. It's up to you. That's it. All right, I'm done.
I was going to keep going.
That was on me. You can keep going, and I'll keep going into the next bit. All right. We've talked about something that gives us pause. Let's talk about something that we love. Ready Player One is opening this weekend, which got us thinking about our favorite Steven Spielberg movies. We're going to count those down over the next couple of days. We're each going to have a chance to see what we love the most. What has the most feelings of nostalgia for us? Starting with the #1 Steven Spielberg fan in the world, Mr. Dan Murrell.
Maybe in the room. I don't know about in the world.
Well, right now that is your world.
Sure,
so
that is my
It's all
world.
a matter of perspective.
Movies are my world. Jaws. I mean, anybody who knows me knows that my favorite Spielberg movie is Jaws. It's my favorite movie. That and Shaun of the Dead are my two cited favorite movies. And I've seen this movie probably 30 times. And it's one of those movies that's not just a movie to me. It has kind of woven through my life in such a way that I have memories associated. I have memories of family members. I have memories of where I was at certain times in my life when I watched it. I have, you know, it is a part of who I am. It's a part of my love for movies. And it's also one of those that, you know, when they say they don't make them like they used to. I mean, imagine a movie like Jaws, when Godzilla came out, when the new Godzilla came out, and it was just like, oh my God, I'm so sick of waiting for this Godzilla to show up. Why are they making me wait so long? Like, Jaws invented that, and so you kind of see the reaction that it might have gotten today versus when it came out. And I love that it is not a movie about a shark. It's really not. I mean, the shark is what motivates the action. The shark certainly provides the horror and the thrills, but the movie is not about the shark. It's about Chief Brody and Quint and Matt Hooper. And that's if you look at that movie,
And the USS Indianapolis.
and the Indianapolis, and like that movie's about them. It's about him. It's really a story about how Chief Brody becomes accepted into this island culture. He's afraid of the water. You know, by the end of it, he's kind of integrated into this. And so I love this about character. You know, the shark is fun. I think it still looks pretty impressive. most of the time. 90% of the shots are still pretty impressive because Spielberg smartly knew not to overuse what
shark,
he had.
Wait,
by
no,
necessity,
that's not what happened.
By necessity,
The shark didn't work.
The shark
Come on.
didn't work.
It was a happy. This is the beauty of filmmaking. This is the beauty of the alchemy of filmmaking. The shark didn't work,
In that
and so he
salt water.
couldn't use it as much as he wanted to, which is beautiful.
But-
he made that work.
But even once the shark did work, I still don't think he overused it
Yeah.
in the sense of, it's not in every frame of the movie. There's still the hitting the boat, the barrels were a great way to work around not having the shark. But really, it's not the shark moments that I find. I find little character moments and little character beats every time I watch the movie, and that's what I love. Is it's such a great, and it doesn't get credit for this, I don't think. It's such a great character piece. It's almost like a psychological study of these three guys and what they do out alone on the water, which is the last, really, third act of the movie. So I love it. I think it's great. I think it's still a great horror movie. It still makes you jump and laugh and gasp and do everything that a great movie should.
So they used to. Do you remember this when the idea was there's man versus man, man versus nature, and man versus himself? Those
Yeah.
three ideas, and that Jaws basically, in one way or another, has all three because it's like man versus man is like Brody versus the mayor, and their priorities. Brody versus himself and his own fears of the water.
Yeah.
And then man versus nature because that damn shark is scary as f. Like
Yeah.
that shark is terrifying. Murderous little beast.
And it's a subtle movie, and I know it sounds weird to say it's a shark. It's a movie about a shark. Call it subtle, but look at the Indianapolis speech, which is great. Robert Shaw nominated for an Oscar for that movie, and he should have been. When he says, "I'll never put on a life jacket again," that's kind of a, that's the downbeat of that story. That's kind of how, as he's wrapping it up, and everyone else remembers, the top and the upending. But that line, "I'll never put on a life jacket again." And again, there's not the scene in the third act where like they're arguing. He's like, "I told you I'd never put a life jacket on again, and I meant it," which is where a lot of movies would go. There's just that scene when they're taking on water, and he loses his balance, and he grabs the deck, and he looks over, and he sees the life jackets dripping. No words, and he just walks back out, and he tosses one to Roy Scheider, and he tosses one to Dreyfuss, and he just kind of sits down and, he's got his crackers and stuff. That's all you need to know. That's all that movie needs to tell you. And that's the kind of filmmaking that I love. It doesn't
Show, don't
connect the
tell.
dots for you. Yeah, show, don't tell. And that's such a great, it's one of my favorite moments in the movie because it is just a great piece of wordless acting and a director that knows that you don't have to hold your audience's hand through every single sequence or beat of a movie. They're pretty smart. And if they're listening and they're watching and they're paying attention, they can catch up. They can catch things like that.
And it's always nice to have things to discover when you go back to a film. Sudden thesis, you guys, weigh in. Was just thinking about reshoots and things like that and happy accidents, which for me, that is the part of the magic of filmmaking. It's not a bad thing. I love it when somebody didn't plan for something and then it works and that the director trusts the process enough and trusts themselves enough to know how to make that work, which is what Spielberg did so brilliantly with Jaws, which is, I've seen it many, many times as well. But also, there was the final scene in The Graduate. Like, they just ran and they sat down and they were so overwhelmed that they made those faces, left it in the movie. Do you think that we lose a lot today with studios trying to make things too perfect? Is that some of the sanitizing? Would they go back and shoot the shark when it could work?
I don't even know if it's too perfect, but kind of like Dan was talking about, over-explaining and like hitting you over the head so hard so that it's like, not only are you hearing the words and seeing the imagery, but we're also going to repeat it 7 times because you might have missed it, you morons.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I actually got it the first time, and by the second time I was like, okay, maybe, and by the 7th time I was like, now it's annoying and I don't care.
Speaking of happy accidents, there are 2 shooting stars that Spielberg happened to catch on film. Once in a wide shot of the boat, and then once behind Roy Scheider. Again, like that's just
Magic.
kismet.
Yeah, we just happen to be out there. Yeah.
Maybe it's karma.
Who knows what it is? That's production value that you can't buy that kind of thing.
That's magic.
I do have one bone to pick, which is that on all of the home releases, they have replaced the sound effects track on almost all of them. I think the DVDs might still have it. They still have the original mono track, but they replaced the original sound effects with redone ones, and they're nowhere near as good. It takes the power out of the shark hitting the boat. It takes the power out of even the last second because they re-edited all the sound effects and they sound really cheesy and stupid, and I hate it. And it bothers me every time I see the movie that I have a great, wonderful looking HD print of this movie and all of the sound effects
With
have
really
been
janky sounding
redone.
effects.
Yeah, it's just they just re-recorded everything. It
That's
doesn't
kind of
even sound the
bizarre.
same.
Why would you put
I have no.
crappy sound
I
effects?
think
More
because
better.
it was recorded in mono,
Yeah.
and so they're like, well, we're going to do it in 5.1, but they couldn't upgrade the sound
'Cause
effects, so
more
they
is
just
better.
redid them. Yeah, exactly. That I
Much
hate is that it's
better.
very hard to find the original sound mix for this movie, and I think the sound mix is, especially for this movie, is just as important as any other thing. So I hate that there's a version of Jaws that everyone else saw that has been replaced now by the version that people are seeing, because it's not as effective and it's not as well done.
That is truly a bummer, a very sad thing. Stop messing with classic movies because we think more is better. More is not always better. More is not always better. I know when it comes to calories.
Wow.
I thought you were going with emotion of the
Jeez.
ocean.
Yeah.
It's the side of the boat kind of thing.
As we were coming in today, Billy and I were talking about the thing that would give Dan the biggest aneurysm for a sequel to Jaws, and I think we landed on it. It's called Jawsy Shore. And
Shore!
it is a hybrid of the Jersey Shore and Jaws. That shark is such an asshole. Oh
mean-
my God.
We're gonna need a
Does the
bigger
shark eat them
boat.
Yeah, if he eats all of them, then great. I don't
Why
care.
is that shark such a dick?
Oh my god, I just want
my
a GTL.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if the shark eats them.
Shark, yeah.
Listen,
Shark, yeah.
I'm a Jaws fan, and I've lived through Jaws: The Revenge. So give me your worst.
That's my worst.
Give me a
That's
Jaws.
the
It's just
I
going-
lived through Jaws Goes to SeaWorld.
Dan, do you know the Jersey Shore characters at all?
I know their names.
Okay, you have to put one of them in a Jaws movie. Which one?
Well, again, they get to be eaten, so it's
All right.
it's
Take your
really
pick.
any of them.
Okay.
It's
So the
essentially-
situation.
The situation.
Yeah.
Sure. I don't know. Why
Yeah.
not?
It's essentially Sharknado. That's
Mikey?
the worst.
That's one, right? Mikey?
Mike, the situation.
Yeah, Mikey.
Yeah, it's still the
Mikey
same one.
situation. Ronnie. Ronnie?
Ronnie's one too.
Okay. There
I
you
would
go.
list-
You're not even naming the Snooky.
Snooky. Well, yeah, everyone knows
You don't
Snooki.
want
That
Snooki
seemed
to get
cliche.
eaten. Yeah, it was too cliche. You're
Yeah.
right. The rest of it is very obscure. Spot on.
That is the very worst Jaws sequel pitch I can come up with, but I would love to know what other people can come up with. Do you have any thoughts on Jaws, Mr. Joe Starr?
Only that, we kind of give J.J. Abrams crap sometimes for, the mystery box, his love of mystery boxes. But I do think part of storytelling is, as an audience member, as you're watching something, whether you're conscious of doing it or not, you're asking questions, and you're sort of building sort of the story in your head as you go along. And Jaws is a movie that is a very amazing balance of letting you ask questions instead of, like we've been talking about, just spoon feeding you answers. It's, can we trust Quint? Can they stop this shark? Will his family be safe?
Is that person dead?
Yeah, exactly. So I think there are some movies that are just like, here's nothing but questions, and I sort of leave those fulfilled. And then there are some movies that are like Dan said, are going to have the moment where Quint's like, I meant it when I said that about the life jackets. Here are your life jackets, and and just going way too far and not giving an audience a chance to fill in gaps, on their own. And Jaws is just a really, really good balance of that.
And one thing that that's my last. Well, I could talk about Jaws forever. But one thing that I will mention also is look at how well drawn those three characters are of Quint and Hooper and Chief Brody. All three of them fill in each other's weaknesses. Brody is kind of he is not accustomed to the water. He's a bit of a fraidy cat, but he's rational and he's logical. Hooper is
Kinda
smart,
like Sammy Sweetheart.
but he is naive and overconfident. And Quint is experienced, but he is obsessed and has no logic or rationale whatsoever.
Pauly D.
And you put those three on the boat together. That's again what makes that movie work so well. Is that you combine those characters, those three in one person is what they're going to need to get out of this situation. No pun intended. But only through the three of them combining their strengths are they able to do it, and they don't all make it out. And again, that's writing.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
knowing what characters work on a page and work on a screen, which again, in big movies like that especially, you don't get that. Great great characters.
We rarely, very, very, very rarely get that anymore.
Or the three of them would be one character with a bunch of other people that are just cannon fodder and
Exactly.
need to be saved.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tooth fodder. All right. I think that we should play out today's show with one of the greatest theme songs of all time. Is it a theme song? Yeah, it's a theme song.
Mentos?
Are you talking about those two notes?
Oh my God, come on.
Da-da.
Dun-it, dun-it,
This is still
dun-it,
Mentos.
dun-it, dun-it, dun-it,
Fresh
dun-it,
goes
dun-it,
better.
dun-it, dun-it.
Mentos.
Oh my God, I hate that fish so much.